From freeze rays to laser beams to long-range warning systems, the future is now. I'm Bob from World 5 List. Join me as I reveal to you 10 science fiction weapons that actually do exist today. Number 10. The PHASR Rifle. Now, when it comes to sci-fi weapons, one of the standards of the genre are laser rifles and pistols. However, while pure laser weaponry, ones that kill, is still kind of far away, we're currently using another kind of laser. But what other kind of laser am I referring to? Well, blinding ones, of course, and that's exactly what the PHASR Rifle is. Now, you might be wondering, why would a rifle be used to blind the enemy? Well, really, it's to keep the casualties low, and sometimes you just don't know whether the person approaching you is an enemy or a bystander. So it's good to have an option to disable them and take them off the field without killing them or hurting them too badly. And so the PHASR does just that. Now, interestingly enough, the employment of lasers to blind enemies has actually been in use for decades. But you may be surprised to know that the United Nations actually banned blinding laser weaponry in 1995. So how come the PHASR is able to be used today? Well, it's those other blinding lasers that were made to do permanent damage. While the PHASR's blindness is only temporary, which makes it both useful and humane. As for when the world will see that true laser rifle, nobody knows for sure, but people are currently working on it, and the PHASR is proof of that. Number 9. TrackingPoint 338 Shadow Trax 8. Now, advancements in technology have made things really very efficient, especially when it comes to weapons. Just look at the TrackingPoint 338 Shadow Trax 8. This is a hunting rifle, but it's perfectly made to both track and kill a target with a minimum amount of effort from its user. Not really too fair, but that's not really what the video is about. How does it work though? Well, first off, the gun has an optic laser sensor that's built in, and it can perfectly calculate how far away a target is. And it also features a scope that tracks its target as it moves. And as if that weren't enough, it actually has a weather sensor that can detect how the area around the shooter is going to affect the bullet's trajectory. Calculating everything that these systems do, the gun automatically updates itself to fire in the most optimized way possible, meaning that all you'll have to do is basically get a good view on the target and make sure it's within the gun's 1400 meter range, and then you'll have a high probability of killing the target with your first shot out. Now, this is hands down one of the most advanced rifles on the market today. Sure, it's a bolt action, but hey, we all have to compromise somewhere, right? And now for number 8. But first, if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. I'm glad to see you again. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe for more videos like these in the future. Number 8, the active denial system. There are a lot of sci-fi weapons that don't overtly hurt you, but actually make you hurt from the inside out. That was clearly the inspiration for weaponry like the active denial system. This system is able to fire radiation, non-radioactive kind of course, in very small bursts and waves, and when it hits people, it actually makes them feel like their skin is roasting from the inside out. Now, to be clear, it's just a temporary reaction, but imagine yourself being in a crowd and you suddenly feel like something is boiling you alive. You're probably going to freak out and even maybe run away like a madman. That's exactly what the active denial system will do and is mainly used for: crowd control. Pointing a few of these bad boys at a massive rioting crowd and turning them on will remedy the situation pretty quickly. The only problem is it does have some design flaws. Because of how the radiation works and it's generated, it can only work on certain kinds of days. Mainly, there can be no rain and it can't already be scorching hot. Also, it's a rather cumbersome weapon, having to be wheeled in on a Jeep and not exactly portable. Still though, if it's refined a little bit, it could be massively helpful in the near future. Number 7. Drones. Now look, it's easy to see that drones are all out today and that they're not exactly sci-fi, especially since they've been in use for years. But don't let their age fool you on how advanced they really are. Drones in any capacity, from the ones you fly near your house to the UAVs that help soldiers in the world, are undoubtedly science fiction. After all, they're aerial vehicles that can be outfitted to do virtually anything if you build them the right way. And yes, the commercial model is simply to fly around and look cool, but TV shows and movies employ them as a cameraman of sorts, even having them go sky high to get cool aerial shots or to follow someone around and get all those angles without having to worry about shakiness. Moving on to the military though, drones are outfitted with communication systems, radar to spot enemies, cameras to spy on them, and yes, even missiles and guns to kill them. And with each new advancement comes the ability to grow and move on even more. Some even think that it'll be drones and not people that will be making deliveries of all sorts in the future. And in terms of the military, this could be a future of warfare. Number 6. The tractor beam. One of the holy grail of science fiction shows like Star Trek, Star Wars, and others is the idea of the tractor beam. Being able to see a ship, not wanting it to escape, and then locking it in a beam so powerful that if they try and struggle against it, it's going to rip them apart. Now indeed, the tractor beam is an intriguing piece of technology, but the question is, who's making it? And why? Well, that would be NASA, of course. After all, they're space people, so why not them? To be fair though, I'm sure that other people are probably working on it as well for various reasons, but NASA likely has a leg up because they have 3 different prototypes of the tractor beam in the works. And in case you're curious, tractors are indeed feasible, as light has been known to both push things around and emit pressure on an atomic level. The problem, though, has always been to harness that power in a way that can truly move things around, and that's exactly what NASA is doing now. To be clear, their tractor beams aren't fully functional, and they certainly haven't gotten them big enough to pull ships or small objects, but their studies are proving fruitful, and any advancement could lead to big breakthroughs before long. Number 5. The CornerShot. Now, one of the coolest guns ever made is the CornerShot, and it does exactly what the name says. It allows the user to fire around corners without putting themselves in serious risk or really being exposed. The gun was made in Israel by a lieutenant colonel, and ever since its creation has been used by certain armies and law enforcement divisions all over the planet. The function is actually quite simple and elegant, as the gun itself is either made in such a way to bend, or in some versions, be movable, and the back half is just for stabilization. A camera on the front half of the gun projects to a screen on the back half, allowing the user to fire with extreme precision. And as if that wasn't cool enough, certain versions of the gun are outfitted with grenade launchers, making them versatile in both optics and offensive strategies. And of course, if you were wondering, yes, it is the gun that Angelina Jolie used in the film Wanted. Number 4. The XM25 grenade launcher. Now, speaking of grenade launchers, let's talk about one of the most unique designs to ever be made of one, the XM25. It goes by a lot of different names, but the impact is all the same. The launcher not only can track its own grenades and targets that it's firing upon, but also can adjust when the grenade explodes. That's right, no more waiting for it to explode. You track your target, and then you program when you want it to explode. You can do a mid-air burst, a targeted strike, or even a simple warning shot, because the grenades are literally that advanced. The gun is also semi-automatic, meaning that it fires multiple rounds quickly, making it even more useful in the field of battle. These launchers were first employed in the battle for Afghanistan in 2010, and if there have been advancements since then, the weapon has a whole lot more use today. I mean, just imagine having one of these things. Who hasn't wanted to have their own grenade launcher? Wouldn't you want one? And if you had it, what would you do with it? Let me know all about it in the comments below. Number 3. The freeze ray. The best version right now is used by the Germans because they figured out a way of using a laser on high pressure gas and making the temperature drop to 119 degrees below in seconds. Now, how does a laser do that exactly? Well, as it turns out, the photons of a laser can mess with the electrons in gas, and when that happens, the gas loses heat. So it makes it very cool. No pun intended. Because of how quickly it can happen, it can freeze gas without having to go through the liquid state, which is impressive and just the beginning. That's because another group of German scientists have done a similar thing, except they pointed the laser at the sky above Germany and actually made clouds. Now, all it took was knocking around some atoms and molecules to become charged and create condensation, which then form the clouds themselves. The technology is still very primitive, and it's not a full-on freeze ray or a weather manipulator. However, it is a start. Number 2. The Armatix IP-1. Remember that one James Bond movie, Skyfall? I mean, how can you not? Bond's blue eyes and steel-cut face. Anyway, where Q gave Bond a gun that only he could use. Well, that's not the future of guns, it's actually the present and potentially near future in the Armatix IP-1. Now, this is basically that James Bond gun with a few tweaks. In Skyfall, the gun itself could actually read Bond's fingerprints, allowing him to use it and no one else. But with the Armatix IP-1, it requires a watch that reads your fingerprints, likely by pressing the watch to unlock it, and the watch itself must be within 10 inches of the weapon to work. It is a rather brilliant concept and totally calls itself a James Bond gun in the marketing, but on a grand scale, it could actually help revolutionize weaponry in a way that ensures that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands or even get stolen. Now, there are a few people in the United States that feel that having guns restricted to one person is a violation of the Second Amendment, and it's a debate that's likely going to be circling the world for quite some time. Number 1. Sonic black holes. Now, in space, there are many dangers, but few are as terrifying as a black hole. These space entities are something that every person should fear. For if one were to show up where you lived, it would start affecting things and everybody would be screwed. Now, technically, black holes are actually all around us, but they're so small and unstable that they don't do any kind of damage. But that hasn't exactly stopped people from wanting to make black holes. And in the case of one group, they've actually done it on a very small scale. By using 100,000 rubidium atoms, chilling them down, and then using lasers to whirl them around in a specific pattern, scientists were actually able to make what's called a sonic black hole, an entity that can literally ensure that no sound escapes. It may sound limited, but all science is limited at first, and you just have to grow from there. The purpose of the sonic black hole is to study them, and then study real black holes via those sonic black holes. What did you think of these real-life science fiction weapons, and which ones would you like to own? Let me know all about it in the comments below. Be sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you next time on World 5.